Hey guys, welcome back. So this video I am sitting on the floor because I wanted to talk about the sheer power that is contained within the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. Before I get to that, I just wanted to recap the video that I made last week where I spoke about a few of the things that I didn't like about the Quad Cortex. Now, I received a lot of messages in particular about the flanger. Now the flanger for me just wasn't behaving as a flanger should. And I had a lot of messages stating, oh, maybe you're using it wrong, or maybe you don't know what you're doing, or whatever. The fact of the matter is that Doug Castro from Neural DSP saw the video and he actually commented on the GearPage forum stating that after seeing the video they actually went back, looked at the code, and there was in fact a bug that they found within the flanger coding that made it not behave as it should. So he said that they will be addressing that in the next firmware release. So I'm pretty excited to see not only how they fixed that, but also some of the other things that may be contained within that firmware that may address some of my concerns from that previous video. I feel that it's important that us as users give feedback to companies about their products. Otherwise, firmware will never improve and never get fixed. It'll just stay the same, and we'll just end up with the same bugs and issues that we had from the beginning. So anyway, moving on. As I mentioned, this video is all about the power of the Quad Cortex, and what you can see that I've got on screen here is 8 separate amp blocks. Now, I don't know any processor on the market today, and I could be wrong, but you can literally run 8 separate amp blocks at a time. You would never do that. However, you could, for example, run, say, a rhythm guitarist in row 1, lead guitarist in row 2, bass player in row 3, and then a vocalist on row 4, and they could all have their own separate amp sound or neural capture with say a cabinet response and maybe some effects as well. Okay, so what I've got set up here is 2 amp blocks per row, but they're all feeding down into row 4 where I've got a single cabinet, and in that cabinet block I've got an Own Hammer Marshall checkerboard on the left, and then a Redwires 1960A Marshall mic'd with a Royer 121 on the right hand side. Now you could have the cabinet IRs changing per scene if you wanted to. However, for the sake of keeping a consistent tone, I've just used the one cabinet block with the same IRs. Also, I've recorded a loop into the H9. So again, because your playing dynamics change based on the audible feedback that you're getting from the amp block, I wanted a consistent bass tone to be able to tweak from. So for that reason, I've played a single loop into the H9. I'm going to now go through each block. I'll just play basically one round of each of the loop into each amp and just give you an idea of how the different amps sound. So these are all crunch tones, and I'll let you have a listen. It's also worth mentioning that these sounds were originally set up with the Plexi here as a monitor. However, I'm recording directly to the computer for this video, so the tones aren't set up specifically for recording. So your mileage may vary in terms of how they sound. If you were to do this kind of thing yourself, then you would obviously monitor through whatever you're going to be using that patch for or that preset for. Okay, so without any more talking, let's have a listen to what we've got here. So there you go. That's the 8 different sounds. So what I would typically do is, if I wanted to be able to A/B between a couple of different sounds, and again, it doesn't have to be an amp block, it could be a neural capture. However, what I would do is I would go into the amp block, I would play the loop back, and then I could tweak and then be basically toggling between a couple of different presets or different scenes and then reference the tone. So this is how I would do it. So essentially I can be toggling between multiple scenes and then just tweak the one, basically the one that I'm going back to, then I would tweak it from there. You could also utilize, say, let's just go back to this first scene here. Say I wanted to swap out the amp block for a neural capture. You could also preview the actual neural captures from the Quad Cortex as you're selecting it. To give you an example, say I go into this block and I want to switch out the 2203 for a neural capture. And let's go to the factory captures here. I can actually play back the loop and then I can go through and actually preview before I commit to that change from the list. So let's have a look at doing that. So there you have it. Now, one thing to mention, if you are going to change out blocks like this, you'll find that in your scenes, the bypass state doesn't remember the last saved state of the previous block, which is a little bit of annoyance in terms of now I have to go through and go, right, well, in that scene, I want to bypass it, and then just basically go through and bypass that neural capture in all those subsequent scenes like this. So now you can see that it is bypassed. Oh, not in that one, it's not. So let's bypass there. Back to here. So that's one thing that I find a little bit annoying in terms of having to bypass. It's important that you do bypass the other amplifiers, otherwise you're going to have distortion on distortion and it's not going to give you an accurate representation of what the actual capture or the amp block sounds like. But anyway, I hope you find this a useful tool for creating your own presets, being able to A/B different blocks. And you can see, you wouldn't typically run probably 8 different amp blocks or neural captures. With that being said, I still have a little bit of juice in the tank if I wanted to bring up, say, a reverb. And you can see that some of these are grayed out, which means I don't have the available CPU to be able to select these reverbs, but I could select a spring reverb, and let's say, turn the mix down a little bit. So there you go. Hopefully I've given you some ideas in terms of what you can do to help you program some of your own presets. The Quad Cortex is super powerful. It's great if you're being able to feed a loop in, and it's convenient to be able to go through and then just tweak sounds in that way, but you don't have to use a loop pedal, of course. I'm really excited to see what the new firmware release brings with it. Hopefully there's the auto wah engage function, which is something that it really needs. But other than that, I'm loving the Quad Cortex. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you have a great week, and we'll catch you later. Bye for now.